I want to go to Connie Joy, author of Tragedy in Sedona, My Life in James Arthur Ray's Inner Circle. You are a former member of James Arthur Ray's Inner Circle, and you did many, many events with him, but you ultimately became disillusioned with him before this 2009 Sweat Lodge event. Why did you become disillusioned with him?
Well, before we do that, Jane, I just want to say, I know you just said you're going to be in a sweat lodge, but you're going to be there with real Native Americans, so your sweat lodge is going to be a real one. What we experienced and other people experienced with James was not. So, but what happened essentially
over... How is it different?
Well, how's it different? First of all, usually they're around 4 rounds. Usually they pour some water on the rocks. Usually they let people that are in there talk in between the rounds to share what they're experiencing. And I'm not aware of any true shaman, Native American shaman, who would allow people to pass out inside his sweat lodge and continue on with the ceremony.
So, okay, you believe then, I would assume, or tell me, do you think he behaved irresponsibly?
I believe he definitely needs to take some responsibility for how he acted. There were people clearly in distress. By the way, though, this was not the first time this has happened. All the way back to 2005, a man was taken away in an ambulance with heat stroke after being in his sweat lodge. In 2007, when I was there, I saw a woman carried out who couldn't control the movements of her arms and legs. Many, many people are always laying on the ground, shaking, throwing up, disoriented. In 2008, one of my friends stopped breathing twice when he came out in the middle. Another woman was unconscious for hours. Another friend of mine thought she was going to die. So, again, he had plenty of warning that what he was doing was not safe, and yet he continued on.
Now, I want to ask you about the claims that he may have had a God complex, because we read that one of the exercises leading up to this, during this event that they go to of several days, involved him actually playing God.
That's correct. He actually even dressed up in a white robe. Yeah, he dressed up in a white robe, and he was God. He called it the samurai game, which, of course, he adapted something, that a growth game that's used in business, but the growth games in business don't involve a God who points at you, orders you to die, and you have to drop to the ground immediately. If you don't do what he tells you instantly, then another person from your team is told to die and drop to the ground, so they have to suffer the consequences of your non-action. Once you're there, you may be laying there for several hours on concrete. You'll be missing meals, and if you move, another person on your team is told to die.
What is he? Is this sadistic? By the way, his attorneys are invited on any time to tell their side of the story. We'd love to have them on. We want to be fair here, but I mean that sounds kind of to me
disturbing.
Yeah, it's a little disturbing. Now, let me ask you this. What kind of training did James Arthur Ray have? He says he is qualified to conduct a sweat lodge ceremony. One thing's for sure, he's pretty high on himself. Listen to what he said on one of his DVDs for sale. Listen to this.
And you say, James, you're really harsh on TV. No, there's some good things on TV. I've been on Oprah twice.
All right, sounds like he has a huge ego. I got to go to Dr. Kathleen London. You've been listening to all this testimony. What do you make of this sweat lodge and these people who died, 2 of them at the event and then 1 9 days later at a hospital?
I mean, it sounds like this was incredibly dangerous. From things that I've read as well, they had an experience in the desert where they withheld food and water even leading up to this. So they were, in a sense, dehydrated going in, and that's an extremely dangerous combination. And for people who were as young as these 3 individuals were to drop, like that, there were a lot of warnings. People were vomiting, someone passed out. Those are huge warnings. I've worked many, marathons, and when we're in the med tent at the marathon, one of the things we look for is heat stroke and heat exhaustion, and you need to be aware and be treating it right away.